Welcome again to Her God, a program by women for women and about women's issues. Today our topic is pregnancy, a very important topic for women of all ages. And with me to share on this topic are Priya Kalmiano, who is in the ministry in Bangalore with her husband, and she has 2 beautiful children. And we have with us again Dr. Josephine Wilson, a gynecologist.
Hello.
Who has a ministry and is working in Chennai and lives with her husband and 2 beautiful children there. So we want to look at a topic that is crucial to the life of the family, and a topic that God holds very dear to his heart, and that is the beginning of life in the womb. We know that our Mother Mary was given the announcement that she would be a mother by an angel, and how important that tiny life is within the womb, so great and important that the Mother of God had the honor of giving birth to a child. And we read in the Bible that in the book of Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, the chapter 1, that God says, I consecrated you from the womb, even before you were born. And in Psalm 139, verse 13, we read that God actually knit us together in the womb. It's by his very hand that a child is put together. So for us to understand and appreciate God's work and a woman's job and a woman's vocation in having a child, we are having this discussion today. And I'd like to start with Dr. Josephine, who has assisted many women to give birth to their children. And maybe you can just tell us some advice and all for our viewers who maybe have never been pregnant, or who are expecting to be pregnant in the future, and they've never even maybe had a gynecologist. So
thank you, Anne-Marie. And I would say it's a big blessing that God's given me to become an obstetrician and a gynecologist in aiding women and delivering them. It's really a great gift. And I always tell that pregnancy is a gift from the sacrament of marriage. And when a woman is expecting her baby, she needs to be completely prepared. See, for example, Mother Mary, the angel completely prepared Mother Mary to go through her pregnancy. And as a doctor, it is my responsibility. And I would like to tell the women out there that when you're going to get pregnant, you're into this sacrament of marriage, just keep looking forward it as a gift. I know several times that young girls, as soon as they get married, they conceive, they get pregnant, they come over and say, we didn't plan for this, you know. They would kind of give a note of rejection, you know. They would say, no, we didn't want this at this time, you know, doctor, we are planning to travel, like, you know, my husband and me, we are planning our future. I would want this happen 6 months later. So I always tell them that you have recognized your baby late, because this baby is in her womb almost 15 days earlier before the woman realized she missed her periods. You know, so this baby has recognized his mother before the mother recognizes the baby.
Interesting.
So
interesting.
yes.
Yeah. So this baby is all the time waiting there, excited for the mother to look at the pregnancy and say, oh, wow, you know, I'm there, mother, I'm there, father. And that moment, this patient comes there, does her test and comes and sits there and says, I didn't expect this. So imagine what could the baby think inside the womb.
And you know, yeah, that emotional feeling, I know in the inner healing and all, and I'm a social worker, but you know, you can't ever completely evaluate this, but can the baby actually feel that depression of the mother?
Definitely.
Or the anxiety,
yes.
You know?
So they say that this baby is all excited and suddenly it gets a rejection, you know. So we always, whenever women come to me with a missed period, I always tell them, and if they're Catholics and Christians, and be it what religion, you know, I just say, how good are you to feel excited because you're going to go through this pregnancy test. If you're a little upset or moody, just, you know, just give it up here, just get into a happy moment because your baby doesn't want you. And I'm sure it's even listening to what we are talking. So, you know, I keep telling them, it's even listening to what we are talking, and it would be thanking God that there's one doctor who's telling my mother to get excited in my presence, you know. So I always tell them, be happy, say a prayer, do your pregnancy test, and come back with a cheer and happiness and joyful feeling, rather than feeling, give the baby a note of rejection. Because whatever the mother thinks or she is going through is definitely going into as feelings into the baby. And tomorrow, if we have a very depressed child, or very, or angry child, or an overactive child, it's completely what this mother has gone through her pregnancy, So I also tell their husbands, like, how did this happen? Don't ask that question to your wives.
Don't intimidate them, like, right?
Exactly. They'll be like, we were unaware or something like that, So I always say it's a parental responsibility. So I get them even prepared before they go to the pregnancy test. And then I tell them to come back with a report, and then, start prayer from the moment they know she is pregnant, a family prayer. And I always tell them to put that third baby into the family already, even before they see the baby, to keep the baby in prayer, especially as a gynae. For me, I always ask them to read the Mary Song of Praise, the Magnificat.
Ah, how beautiful, how beautiful.
Yes. So, I tell them to read it every day, because it is a promise for generations to generation. Imagine what a blessing it would be for a woman to submit her baby and her family and pray for her generations, that she can be completely confident at the end of her delivery it's going to be a beautiful baby and a blessing.
Do the women who come into your office with these anxieties, do they feel more comforted when you're
Yes, there are
guiding
some
them?
patients who feel very bad and start even crying because they have said they don't want this baby, and then I talk to them, I touch their inner feelings that it's actually a mother can never refuse her baby. It's only that whatever circumstantial conditions or their financial positions that make them speak that word. And then once we start putting in that little conscious mind into them, they automatically start, crying. They feel so bad, and then they say, thank you, doctor, you've made. Because I always tell them, they immediately say, can we think of, and if they've not, if they're planning, then they'll say 6 months. And if it's a second baby, they say, we wanted it after 2 years. They think it can just happen when they want. And then I always tell them that once you conceive, you're not going to have the baby the next day. It's going to take 9 full months. And if something cannot change for 9 months, it can never change for 9 years.
And what do you mean by if something can't change for 9 months?
For example, their financial position, or their whatever crisis at home, or their difficulty, or their shifting, or their planning. See, they have 9 good months to plan, get into a bigger home if they want, or whatever can be settled in 9 months, So I always give them a confidence, saying that some get scared that they need to take complete rest during pregnancy, That's kind of a feeling that they go into a thing like, I'm working now, doctor. So I say, so what? All women work. Yes. And work and yet get pregnant, deliver beautifully. So I tell them, you don't have to give up your job. So they'll say, what if I vomit? So I'll be like, yes, we have medications and you can get through the vomiting. And I always tell them, every time you vomit, think your baby is there, reminding you it's there.
That's a positive thought.
Yes.
What about, Priya, what was it like for you when you first got married and then you had your first pregnancy? And
Actually, my first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage, because by the time I discovered I was pregnant, I had actually started spotting.
Okay.
And within about a week or so, it ended in a miscarriage, So that was it was a surprise for us when I discovered that I was pregnant, but we were very excited about it. And it was a huge disappointment 1 week later when I lost the baby, So it was very, very painful.
Yes.
And I knew I had the baby just for a week. And yet it was so painful. I remember how I wept and how much I begged the doctor to do something to just save my baby, So I guess that's just the blessing that the Lord has given us to be mothers, And we can't really fully prepare for motherhood before we actually get pregnant, Because when you know there is a life in your womb, there's a human being growing there, created in the image and likeness of God, I think that's when all these maternal instincts, we don't know where they were buried until then, but they just come alive. So during my second pregnancy, since someone encouraged me to read the Bible to my baby who was in the womb, I actually managed to go through the whole Catholic Bible, reading it aloud, and I think I finished even before I entered my 9th month, which I think was a big achievement for me, and which made a huge difference too, because I was so strengthened and fortified by the Word of God. And whenever possible, I would like to recommend it to any young woman who's pregnant. Try and read the scriptures to your baby. It'll make all the difference.
So what is I think maybe some women might be not understanding the difference between a miscarriage and an abortion. Maybe you can explain that.
A miscarriage is something that the Lord decides that the baby would reach eternity in the womb. It's not that, it is not an intentional incident. The mother is unaware of it, and the baby's heartbeat just disappears after a particular week of growth. That doesn't mean this baby has not grown. It has grown to maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks, because even on the day 1, it's a two-celled, there are 2 cells into the fetus. So, and then 2 becomes 4 and 4 and 16 and keeps multiplying day by day. And then it becomes a fetus. And when it grows there for 4-5 weeks, and then this heartbeat just stops for whatever reasons. We cannot say why somebody dies at 10 and somebody dies at 15 or something. So it's something which happens very, very naturally. And
now, do some women have a chronic problem though? Continuous miscarriage?
See, we call them as the bad obstetric history, where women go through multiple abortions, miscarriages, because of there are some medical reasons, there are some reasons which is not identified. So when one woman comes with a miscarriage, we always motivate them, we encourage them, saying 90% of the rest of the pregnancies would be a healthy pregnancy. You don't need to really worry because you had one miscarriage, because that one miscarriage, we always say at the conception, there has been some kind of a mismatch in the cell or the whatever genetic material which does not sustain itself to live longer. So that's the way it has been created, and you don't, as a mother, you don't have any control over it. And when a miscarriage happens, I'm sure, when the mothers are so excited, especially when they see the heartbeat and then in 2-3 weeks they find it disappearing, they get very upset, and they become very emotional, and they think they're incapable of going through another pregnancy. And that's when we have to really encourage them, saying that 90 to 95% they're going to have a healthy baby in the next pregnancy. And we tell them to take a break for about 3 to 6 months, and then plan their pregnancy again. And we do a set of investigations, like to do out a few investigations, and they need to completely submit their pregnancy and their marriage life into prayer.
Very good.
Because I always tell them, I always ask these women, have you done justice to your marriage? They want to become mothers before they have been good wives. So I always tell them, have you done justice there? No, God has given you another 6 months more to go do good justice there and come back, and then you become a beautiful mother. And invariably they come back and they have a very healthy pregnancy, but they are very insecure till they see that they have crossed that period of miscarriage they had in the previous pregnancy. Say if it happened in the 6th week, at 8 weeks they become a little confident. 12 weeks, when they see a baby little one, with all its limbs jumping there.
So exciting.
Yeah, they get a little more excited. And every week, every month when they come for their checkups and we show the heartbeat, they get more and more excited. About, half the pregnancy, they're like 50% confident. And then 8 months, they're like 90%. And then, they know it's all for them. They're going to have the beautiful babies. But for women with multiple miscarriages, they are insecure till the end, till the end, till they get their baby into their arms, So it really needs a lot of courage, because we think, many women or many husbands or many people around think pregnancy is something that their mother went through or their sister went through, is something that they don't really consider important. But a pregnant woman needs to be completely kept in a very, very good
very
environment.
Good frame of mind.
Yes,
Good,
the husband needs to be kind to her, good to, not that you need to, overdo what you're doing, but the thing is that you should understand that it's an emotional situation. It's a very emotional situation. Sometimes they just come, they're all bubbly. The next visit, they would come and sit there and start crying.
Oh.
And you would not know. And they would be like, doctor, I'm feeling so depressed. And you'll be like, why? What's the reason? And they'll say, I don't know. So then I tell them, no, it's your pregnancy itself. And they'll be like, oh, pregnancy can cause this, doctor. Then I'll be like, yes, because there are a lot of mood swings in pregnancy. And if the mother-in-law kind of says something, then she starts weeping, and she thinks everybody is negative against the pregnancy, and that starts making her insecure.
Yeah.
So I always tell them that environment the woman needs to be when she is pregnant, because I at least tell them to bring the mother-in-law, the mother, for one visit, so that we can
doctor,
tell
yeah.
them that you need to keep this girl in a good environment.
Now, can I ask you now, for your definition of what is an abortion, in contrast to a miscarriage, which is unintentional, and it's a problem, a biological problem. An abortion is an intentional act,
Yes.
which, of course, is against our faith. We read in the Catholic Catechism, there's there's a whole section, 2270 to 2275, that talks about our responsibility to protect human life. So the intentional act of abortion, but I'm wondering if when women discover their child is disabled or they have some problem with the fetus, if that causes them to want to have an abortion, or what's your experience on that? And I know, Priya, you have a child that's disabled, and how can women handle that fact when that comes out?
Yes, medical science tells us that if we identify problems like any chromosomal problems or any problems this child cannot thrive with, they are asking them to go in for the termination, like what you call as the abortion.
Who is asking?
The doctors, it is a medical recommendation, although it's against our Catholic faith. Okay, so as a doctor practicing in a Catholic hospital, what I do generally is that we do the screening test, and if it comes positive, I sit and counsel them. I say, yes, your baby has a chromosomal problem, but God has given it a life. And we are not here to say that this baby is not capable of living. If somebody tells me today, I become sick, or I suddenly go into a bad sickness, will they tell me that you're not capable of living, you can just leave the world? Aren't we treating cancers? Aren't we treating all chronic diseases? Aren't we treating diabetes? Aren't we treating chronic kidney disease? See, just because we have not seen this baby inside the womb doesn't mean we have all the authority to say it can go. So I sit and talk to them and say that, what if you had this baby? Think how you can support it. I know it is going to be a challenge, but if God feels this baby cannot survive, I have seen mothers who have gone through it and they've ended up with normal babies.
When it's been diagnosed as
a Down syndrome.
Okay.
I've had 2 patients where they were diagnosed with saying that they need to go through more tests to rule out Down syndrome. And these mothers with great faith went through the pregnancy, and it landed up to be very, very normal babies.
That's kind of scary, when you can be given that information that's incorrect.
And it's incorrect, but they took up the challenge and said, no, doctor, we feel our Jesus will not let us, down, and we will go through the pregnancy. And they had beautiful babies, and it is so wonderful, so I still, whenever patients come back with me with such troubled minds and say, you do this for me, you do this test for me, doctor, I keep encouraging them, saying, don't relax, it's your baby. You are a person with complete, intelligence and sense. Why do you think you should have a baby with an abnormality? Unless it's really needed or it has to be checked out,
So I wonder if, Priya, what your reaction was. Did you see on the screen ahead of time that... Or did you
Actually, because my son suffered brain damage during the time of birth. So he was perfectly normal until the day of his the day he was going to be born, and because he went into trauma and he suffered meconium aspiration. That's when, you know, there's this fluid which enters the lungs, and his lungs got punctured, and because of which his brain got affected. You know, the oxygen supply to the brain got cut off, and so the right hemisphere got damaged at that time. But it was during delivery, and it was not a chromosomal or birth defect.
See, that's what I mean. That's what I mean to say. So what we think is going through normal can go through an incident like this at the end,
yes,
which cannot be predicted.
Or you can have a normal child at 2 years old have an accident. Then are you going to not take care of them anymore?
Many more.
You know, it's
that's the way we have to look at it, because when women go through it with challenge, they end up in glory because they have already, you know, glorified the pregnancy. And if at all they go through and then they feel, if God decides, I have seen that these babies even die in intrauterine, you know. And there was even one particular patient who made me, you know, the husband was a scientist. In fact, they were a Catholic patient. They were all complete in faith and everything, but they kept doing all kinds of tests, you know, all kinds of tests possible. And, but, you know, something in my mind kept telling me that, are we missing something? You know, like, you know, there are a few things that keep telling us that because this baby was not growing proportionally bigger in size, then it should be growing, you know, for 8 to 9 months. But all the tests kept coming negative, you know. And so then it was born. It's not a Down syndrome, but it's a variation of the same problem, which could not be identified even with several scans and tests. So and then in the end of it, the scientist came and told me, like, you know, what could I do? So I said, see, this is where God stands. And it's your challenge to take care of the baby. And they took it up well.
Beautiful, beautiful. So in this discussion of pregnancy, I think even for the whole family to realize, I think as we've discussed, that the mother, the wife who's pregnant needs a lot of support. We came out with that. And that women need a lot of courage to take on this wonderful task. But that also it's up to God what kind of child is going to be given to us. It's not our choice. And even the weakest children, Jesus called for the children to come to me. And he didn't differentiate only these kinds of children or only the best top students, but every child is belonging to Jesus. So we have no right to stop what gift they're going to be in our family. So we remember that Jesus called the children to come to him. Every kind of child. He never differentiated between only the gifted children, but every child belongs to Jesus. And so let us remember that as we encounter women who are pregnant, pray for them, and pray for women who would like to be pregnant in the future. And I thank you very much, Priya and Dr. Josephine, for coming and joining us on this important topic. God bless you.
Thank you.
Please come again and join us for our next important topic on Her God next week. Thank you.